he will regret losing you forever. There comes a time in every relationship when we must ask ourselves some difficult questions. Are we truly valued? Are we being treated with the respect, love, and care we deserve? Sometimes the answer becomes clear only when we find the courage to step away. The moment you walk away from someone who does not appreciate you, there's a realization that they might not fully understand what they are losing, but one thing is for sure, they will regret it forever. Walking away from someone who doesn't value you is one of the most powerful decisions you can make. In relationships, whether romantic, familial, or friendships, we often find ourselves in situations where we give so much of ourselves that it can become difficult to see the imbalance. We pour our energy into people, hoping for love, understanding, and respect in return. But when that respect is not reciprocated, and we are treated as if we are less than what we deserve, it is crucial to recognize that the time has come to walk away. Doing so isn't a sign of defeat, it is an affirmation of self-worth. It is a decision to reclaim your power and remind yourself that you are worthy of love, appreciation, and kindness, and nothing less. When we are in a relationship where we feel unappreciated, it can be difficult to see our own worth. Often, the emotional investment we make causes us to overlook our own needs. We become so consumed with trying to please or understand the other person that we forget to check if we are being treated with the same level of care. When someone doesn't show gratitude or respect, it's easy to question whether we are enough. These doubts can creep in, and before we know it, we begin to accept less than what we deserve, thinking that it's somehow our fault or that we must change to be worthy. This is the moment when we must remind ourselves of the simple truth: we are worthy of more. Walking away from someone who doesn't value you is a bold step toward restoring your self-worth. It's an acknowledgement that you are not disposable and that your love, time, and energy are precious. The act of walking away is, in essence, a form of self-care. It's about putting yourself first when you have been repeatedly placed last. It is a decision to stop sacrificing your happiness for someone who is not willing to do the same for you. It's easy to stay in situations where we are not valued because we fear the unknown. We are afraid of being alone, of losing the connection we built, or of being seen as someone who gave up too soon. But in reality, the more we stay in these unhealthy relationships, the more we devalue ourselves. We send a message to the world that we will tolerate mistreatment. But when we walk away, we send the loudest message of all that we deserve better. And we are not afraid to step into the unknown to find what we deserve. Often, walking away is the hardest thing to do. The emotional attachment is strong, and the fear of loneliness can be overwhelming. We question whether we will ever find someone who truly appreciates us, or if we will regret the decision. But in those moments of doubt, it's essential to remember that sometimes the best way to grow is to step away from what is no longer serving us. Staying in an unbalanced relationship can cause us to lose sight of who we are, and walking away gives us the opportunity to rediscover ourselves. It opens the door for self-reflection, personal growth, and healing. When we are no longer tied to the emotional weight of an unappreciative person, we can begin to focus on ourselves. We can start to rediscover our passions, interests, and dreams that may have been put aside while trying to make the relationship work. We can surround ourselves with people who lift us up and remind us of our worth. In the space we create by walking away, we allow room for new opportunities, both in love and in life. The healing that begins when we leave is invaluable. It helps us to rebuild our confidence, restore our faith in ourselves, and reconnect with our own sense of purpose. But perhaps the most empowering part of walking away is the realization that we are worthy of something better. By walking away from someone who doesn't value us, we are acknowledging that we do not need to settle for less. We deserve to be loved and appreciated for who we are without having to prove our worth over and over again. Every time we stay in a situation where we are not treated with respect, we diminish ourselves. But when we walk away, we reinforce the belief that we deserve the best and we will not accept anything less. This act of self-respect ripples out into every other area of our lives. It teaches us how to set healthy boundaries, how to prioritize our needs, and how to surround ourselves with people who genuinely care about us. It changes how we approach future relationships, as we no longer feel the need to compromise our values or sacrifice our well-being. We approach life from a place of strength, knowing that we are capable of walking away from anything that doesn't serve us. In the end, walking away is a declaration that we will no longer allow ourselves to be treated as if we are anything less than extraordinary. We do not need to fight for someone's affection or loyalty. We should not have to convince someone of our worth. Our worth is inherent, and when someone fails to see it, we are not obligated to stay and try to change their mind. We deserve someone who recognizes us for who we are, values us for what we bring to the table, and treats us with the love and respect we deserve. The decision to walk away from someone who doesn't value you is not easy. It requires courage, strength, and a deep understanding of your own worth. But it is one of the most important acts of self-love you can perform. It's a statement that you are not willing to settle for less than you deserve, and it's a declaration that you are ready to embrace the future with open arms, knowing that you are worthy of a love that honors and cherishes you. The realization that someone doesn't appreciate you often comes slowly, like a growing sense of unease that you can't quite shake. At first, you might try to dismiss the feelings, telling yourself that things will improve or that you're being too sensitive. But as time goes on, it becomes impossible to ignore the reality that the person you care about is not valuing you in the way you deserve. It is in these moments that the importance of walking away becomes clear. When someone doesn't recognize the value you bring to their life, they may not realize it immediately. However, the truth is that they will come to understand what they have lost, often when it's too late. This is the bitter reality of relationships. People often don't recognize the worth of what they have until it is gone. In many relationships, it's common for people to take each other for granted. When someone is always available to provide love, support, and comfort, it becomes easy for the other person to assume that these things will always be there. People can become complacent, believing that the person who cares for them will always accept the way they are treated, no matter how little effort is put into maintaining the relationship. But when the other person begins to withdraw, when they stop making excuses and start recognizing their own worth, the imbalance becomes undeniable. That's when the regret begins to set in for the person who has been neglecting you. They realize that they may have been too focused on their own needs, too caught up in their own world, or too blind to see the love and care you were offering. This regret doesn't appear overnight. In the beginning, the person may not even fully comprehend the weight of their actions. They may feel frustrated or confused, unable to understand why things have changed. After all, from their perspective, things may have always been fine, or they may have been too wrapped up in their own life to notice the signs. But as time passes and the absence of your love becomes more apparent, they start to realize that they are now facing something that can't be fixed with a simple apology or a gesture of affection. You're no longer there, and that realization cuts deeper than anything else. The person may try to make amends, hoping for another chance, but the damage has already been done. In the end, they will regret losing you forever. It's important to understand that regret in this context is not about guilt or a superficial desire to have things return to how they were. Regret in this case is a profound understanding that they lost something valuable, something irreplaceable. They may come to realize that no amount of time, no number of apologies will ever bring back the connection, love, and support they once had. They'll remember how you always had their back, how you listened when no one else did, and how you gave without expecting anything in return. And in those quiet moments when they're alone with their thoughts, they'll understand just how much you meant to them. And it will hurt. It will hurt because they realize that you were a unique presence in their life, someone who truly understood them, and someone they can never replace. The regret will likely not be immediate. For some, it may take months or even years to fully understand the magnitude of what they lost. In the heat of the moment, they might have taken you for granted, assuming you would always be there. They might have thought that they could change or that you would adjust to their lack of attention or effort, but when you are no longer there, when you choose to step away from a situation that no longer serves you, the reality begins to set in. The person will start to see the gap you left in their life, the absence of your presence, and the space where your love once filled their world. It's often only when it's too late that they truly comprehend how much they've lost. This is the nature of human nature. People often don't realize the depth of what they have until it's no longer available. We tend to be creatures of habit, and when things are comfortable, we stop appreciating them. We assume they will always be there, and so we don't give them the attention they deserve. But the moment something valuable slips away, we begin to look back with regret. wishing we had done things differently, wishing we had put in more effort when it mattered most. But as painful as this regret might be for the person who let you go, it's also important to recognize that this is not your burden to carry. You are not responsible for making someone see your worth. If they didn't value you when you were there, it's not your job to stay and convince them. Your job is to recognize your own worth, to understand that you deserve to be treated with the respect and appreciation that you freely gave. Walking away doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you are choosing yourself. You are choosing to not waste any more time with someone who doesn't understand the gift of having you in their life. The regret they feel will serve as a reminder that you were never replaceable. It will remind them that the connection you shared was rare and valuable, and once it's gone, it's gone. It's gone. They might try to move on, but deep down, they will always know that they let something extraordinary slip through their fingers. And as they move forward, there will be moments when they will reflect on what they could have had. And in those moments, the regret will be real, profound, and lasting. So while the person who didn't appreciate you may try to move on, they will always carry with them the knowledge that they lost something irreplaceable. And that regret will follow them. It will be a reminder of what they had, what they took for granted, and what they took for granted, and what they will never find again. The truth is, people rarely understand the depth of their mistakes until it's too late. But once they realize what they've lost, they will regret it forever. Leaving a relationship, whether it's romantic, familial, or a friendship where you have been unappreciated or mistreated, is never an easy decision. It can be emotionally overwhelming, and the fear of what's to come can often outweigh the certainty of the situation you are in. But in the end, walking away is not an act of weakness. It is a profound act of self-love. It is choosing your own happiness and well-being over self-pity and recognizing that you deserve better than the crumbs you've been given. It's about understanding that staying in a relationship where you feel unvalued will ultimately diminish your sense of self-worth and that you are worthy of much more than mere tolerance. Self-love, in this case, doesn't mean simply loving yourself on the surface. It means valuing your emotional, mental, and physical health enough to let go of someone who cannot meet your needs. When you stay in a relationship where you feel unloved, neglected, or constantly undervalued, it takes a toll on your mental and emotional well-being. You might begin to internalize the negative treatment, telling yourself that it's your fault, that you're not doing enough, or that you deserve the treatment you're receiving. But in truth, no one deserves to be treated poorly. You do not deserve to feel invisible, neglected, or as though your feelings are constantly overlooked. When we choose to stay in these unhealthy relationships out of fear of being alone or feeling unworthy of something better, we slowly start to lose sight of who we really are. We begin to believe the negative stories we've been told by others or by our own insecurities, and we diminish our own value. This is why self-love is not a passive act. It requires us to actively choose what is best for us, even if that means walking away from a situation that no longer serves us. The act of choosing yourself, of prioritizing your happiness and well-being, is one of the most transformative things you can do for your life. It is a conscious decision to stop allowing someone else's behavior to dictate your self-worth. In relationships where you are being mistreated, it's common to make excuses for the other person, to rationalize their actions, and to hope that things will improve. However, this pattern can be emotionally draining and prevent you from seeing the reality of the situation. We often tell ourselves that love should be unconditional, that we should put up with flaws and mistakes, and that relationships require compromise. But there is a difference between compromise and self-sacrifice. If you are constantly sacrificing your happiness, peace of mind, and sense of self to make someone else happy, you are doing yourself a disservice. Self-love requires that you understand that your needs are valid and that you do not have to settle for a relationship where you are being undervalued. Choosing to leave is not about abandoning someone, it's about reclaiming your power. It is a message to yourself that you are worthy of being treated with respect, kindness, and appreciation. It is about recognizing that you are enough and that you do not need to change who you are to make someone else happy. When you love yourself enough to walk away from someone who doesn't treat you right, you are making a bold statement about your self-worth. It's a declaration that you are no longer willing to settle for anything less than the love and respect you deserve. Self-love is about knowing that you are worthy of being treated well. And when you walk away from an unappreciative person, you are saying that you will no longer tolerate disrespect or mistreatment. The idea of walking away may feel terrifying at first, especially if you have invested a lot of time and energy into the relationship. You may fear that you will regret your decision or that you will end up feeling even more alone. However, staying in a relationship where you are unappreciated only deepens the feeling of loneliness. When you are giving your love and energy to someone who doesn't reciprocate, you end up feeling emotionally drained and disconnected from yourself. Choosing to leave, on the other hand, creates space for healing and growth. It allows you to reclaim your energy and start the process of rediscovering who you are outside of the relationship. It gives you the opportunity to nurture yourself, to prioritize your own happiness, and to focus on your personal growth. When you leave a relationship where you are not valued, you make space for something better. Leaving doesn't mean you are giving up on love. It means you are making room for a healthier, more fulfilling connection with someone who values you for who you are. It opens the door for new experiences, new opportunities, and new relationships that can nourish your soul in a way that the previous relationship could not. You may not see it at the time, but walking away is often the first step toward creating a future that is filled with love, respect, and genuine happiness. It is a gift to yourself, a sign that you are worthy of something real and lasting. Furthermore, walking away teaches you to set healthy boundaries, a vital skill in any relationship. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about protecting your own peace and ensuring that your emotional and mental health are respected. By walking away from someone who does not value you, you are setting a clear boundary that you will not accept less than the love and respect you deserve. It teaches you to value yourself enough to walk away when necessary and not to compromise your well-being for the sake of a relationship. This sets the tone for all future relationships, reminding you that you should never settle for less than you deserve. Ultimately, self-love is about choosing yourself even when it's difficult. It's about recognizing that you have the power to make decisions that will benefit your happiness and well-being in the long run. Walking away from someone who doesn't appreciate you is not a sign of weakness, but rather a courageous act of self-respect and strength. It is a declaration that you will no longer tolerate mistreatment, and you are willing to do whatever it takes to protect your peace. By choosing yourself, you are affirming that you deserve to be loved, valued, and treated with kindness and respect. The concept of never truly knowing what you have until it's gone is one of life's painful truths. We often take the people closest to us for granted, assuming they will always be there, never imagining a time when their presence will be absent. This complacency, however, can lead to regret, especially when someone who once held a significant place in our lives is no longer there. It's only in the aftermath of their absence that we begin to realize the extent of what we had, and that realization often comes with a deep sense of loss. The truth is, human nature tends to focus on the things we have when they are readily available. When someone is constantly present, offering their love, support, and care, it's easy to become accustomed to their presence. It becomes the norm, something we expect and rely on, and we stop actively appreciating it. We might think they'll always be there or they'll never leave without truly understanding that nothing in life is permanent. This mindset can be a dangerous trap because it doesn't leave room for reflection or gratitude. We take the person's love for granted, assuming that they will always be there, and that is when we stop giving them the attention they deserve. It's not uncommon for people to neglect their relationships, assuming that things will remain unchanged. We might get distracted by life's other demands, work, personal struggles, or even the pursuit of goals, and in the process, forget to nurture the connections that matter most. The relationship may become routine, predictable, and comfortable, but that doesn't mean it's thriving. Often, the very comfort we take in knowing someone will always be there can be the thing that prevents us from truly appreciating them. We stop putting in the effort because we assume they will never walk away. However, as the relationship becomes more one-sided, with one person putting in more effort than the other, it begins to erode. Eventually, the person who has been giving and giving may decide they've had enough and choose to leave. This is the turning point, the moment when the person who was once taken for granted realizes that they are no longer willing to continue sacrificing their happiness for the sake of someone who isn't valuing them. In these moments, the person who has been neglected often experiences a sense of realization. They may begin to reflect on all the things they did for the other person, all the love they gave, and how their needs were ignored or unmet. It's not that they feel resentful for giving, but rather that they come to understand their worth. They recognize that they deserve to be treated with the same love, care, and attention they so freely offered. This realization is empowering because it marks a shift in their self-awareness. They begin to see that they don't need to continue giving to someone who doesn't appreciate them, and they decide to reclaim their own happiness and well-being. For the person who remains, this absence can be devastating. It often comes as a shock, a sudden wake-up call that they have lost someone significant. The gravity of this loss is felt only after the fact, once the person who was always there has decided to walk away. This is the moment when the person who took them for granted begins to truly understand the impact they had. At first, they might experience denial or disbelief, struggling to understand why the other person left. They may even try to rationalize their behavior, telling themselves that the other person was overreacting or that they didn't mean to hurt them. But no matter how they try to explain it, the truth remains the same: they have lost something important. It is only when they are confronted with the absence of the person they once had that they begin to understand the depth of their mistake. The regret that follows can be overwhelming. As the days and weeks pass, the person begins to see the void that has been left in their life. They remember the small acts of kindness, the thoughtful gestures, and the unconditional support they once took for granted. They begin to miss the conversations, the laughter, and the comfort of knowing that someone cared. The absence becomes more pronounced, and the weight of their actions starts to sink in. It's only then that they realize how much they had relied on that person and how they took their love for granted. But regret, while a natural response, is often a double-edged sword. It is painful to feel the loss of someone who was once so significant, and the regret can become all-consuming. The person who took the other for granted may feel guilty, wishing they could turn back time and make different choices. However, this regret is often accompanied by a sense of powerlessness. The damage has been done, and no amount of regret can undo the hurt caused. The person may try to apologize or make amends, but the other person may have already moved on, recognizing that they are better off without someone who didn't value them. And even if they do offer an apology, the person who left might be unwilling or unable to return. The realization that it's too late often makes the regret even more painful, because they understand that they can never truly replace what they lost.